2025 has been a very divisive year for the WWE, and this is evident in the reception to a lot of premium live events this year. Some of these events delivered moments up there with some of the best in the entire modern era, while others left us questioning why we even like this industry to begin with. I'm Chris Apples from Aussie Cuttons Wrestling, and we're ranking every WWE PLE in 2025 from worst to best. And this is entirely our point of view, so if you think they should be ranked any differently, let us know in those comments, politely of course, and while you're there, make sure you click the subscribe button. In last place, Wrestlepalooza. Nothing makes you sound tougher in combat sports than saying, "I'll see you at Wrestlepalooza." And unfortunately, nothing was tougher to sit through than this show itself. It started out with quite possibly the worst and most pointless match of the year, as Brock Lesnar squashed John Cena on his farewell tour, for the two to never interact again. Jey Uso split his head open, hitting Bron Breakker with a chair during the Usos tag match with The Vision. Stephanie Vaquer and Io Sky put on a fantastic wrestling clinic, even if it was probably a little long. AJ Lee's return to the ring had plenty of moments of fun, as she teamed up with her husband CM Punk against Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, but again, it was way too long. And then Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre didn't really set the world alight in a match that was way too long for its story. The event wasn't overly bad or anything, other than that turkey of an opener. There was just so much waiting for things to happen. And speaking of waiting for things to happen, 13th place, Survivor Series War Games. The most recent PLE on the list, Survivor Series again wasn't necessarily bad, it just seemed like we had to wait forever for anything to happen. And for a Big Four pay-per-view inside a stadium, it was a real letdown. The Women's War Games match was a better spectacle than last year's rough match, but at over 40 minutes, it just seemed to go on and on and on. John Cena and Dominic Mysterio put on a shenanigans-filled sports entertainment fest as the returning Liv Morgan booted John Cena in the balls to save her man. Stephanie Vaquer and Nikki Bella had what can be best described as a match, though La Primera's performance is always top notch. And the men's War Games match was filled with scary moments like Bron Breakker being dropped on the back of his neck, and one of Triple H's favourite tropes, a man in a hoodie making a sneak attack. This was more underwhelming than bad. Number 12, Night of Champions. The finals of the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring tournaments, and John Cena going against CM Punk one final time. This could have been a great show, but WWE shows in Saudi Arabia just never really feel quite right, do they? Cody Rhodes put on a decent opener with Randy Orton in the King of the Ring final, and that was followed by a really fun match between Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez in everyone's favourite stipulation, a Riyadh Boulevard street fight. 2 for 2, it's going pretty well. Then Karrion Kross entered the ring, and things didn't go so well. Kross was almost coming to the end of his tenure in the WWE, and we will get to that soon, and he and Sami Zayn didn't really have much chemistry in the 3 matches that they had in 2025. Solo Sikoa then beat Jacob Fatu for the US title thanks to his MFTs, and then Asuka tried to carry Jade Cargill to a good match, but to be fair to them, in those outfits they had to wear, with how hot it was in that building, they were on a hiding to nothing, as Jade was crowned Queen of the Ring. Then John Cena and CM Punk tried to play the hits, but with Cena still in his heel persona, it just didn't quite click. Number 11, WrestleMania Saturday. WrestleMania Saturday was saved by the main event, in all honesty, otherwise it could have quite easily been at the bottom of this list. Jey Uso beat Gunther to start the show in a match that the big Austrian didn't look particularly happy to be in. The New Day then won a Monday Night Raw match against the War Raiders to win the World Tag Team Championships. Naomi bumped around all over the place for Jade Cargill in a match that didn't quite match the build to it. The second best match of the night came next, with Jacob Fatu winning the US title from LA Knight, where the two of them looked like they genuinely belonged in a feud together. Chad Gable's version of El Grande Americano beat a newly debuting Rey Fenix to give you an indication of how the Mexicans' first year in the WWE would go. And then Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair read from 2 completely different scripts in their WWE Women's title match, with Tiffany retaining in what was a rather entertaining affair, mostly for the wrong reasons. But thankfully the main event saved it, if only it wasn't so bloody long once again, as Paul Heyman turned on both CM Punk and then Roman Reigns to help Seth Rollins win the triple threat main event and go on to establish the vision. Number 10, SummerSlam Saturday. Saturday seemed to be the night for underwhelming two-night PLEs in 2025, with SummerSlam not really living up to the hype until the main event. Jey Uso and Roman Reigns won a fun opener against Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed in a promising start, and then Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair cemented their allegiance as a friendship as they beat Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez for the women's tag team titles, where the star was probably the youngest wrestler in the entire show. And then the show fell apart. Karrion Kross went out on his back against Sami Zayn as Scarlett tried to get the Canadian to cheat to win, but then Sami just beat Kross clean. Drew McIntyre teamed up with Logan Paul to defeat Jelly Roll and Randy Orton, where the story of the match was the big country singer was way tougher than any of these loser wrestlers on the roster. But CM Punk and Gunther put on a great main event that was, stop me if you've heard this before, just way too long. With CM Punk celebrating his crowning moment, Seth Rollins, complete with crutches, came out on the ramp, and then to the surprise of absolutely no one, threw the crutches away, cashed in his Money in the Bank, and became the new World Heavyweight Champion. Number 9, Royal Rumble. The extravaganza that is the best part about January, except for the first time ever, it was in February this year. They moved the event into the Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis and kicked it off with a women's Royal Rumble match, because we can't end the show with a women's match this year. Unless it's a women's only PLE, of course. The women's Rumble was fine, but it included a spot where several superstars, including the likes of Bianca Belair, Io Sky, and Trish freaking Stratus, were just hanging on together on the apron until Nia Jax ambushed them all. Charlotte Flair would go on to the predictable victory, but she was overshadowed in her return by the massive pop for her soon-to-be tag partner, Alexa Bliss. DIY retained their tag titles against Motor City Machine Guns in a best 2 out of 3 falls match, thanks to the returning Street Profits, played out to complete silence despite there being almost 68,000 people in the stadium. Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens then saved the event from obscurity with their ridiculous ladder match for the undisputed WWE Championship, with Cody Rhodes being fisherman busted into a ladder, followed by Kevin Owens being Alabama slammed into one as well. And then the men's match had probably the most star-studded roster ever and was just kind of there. The winner being Jey Uso was definitely a shock, but then that felt like it was one designed for WWE Unreal. Number 8, WrestleMania Sunday. This one started off with an absolute bang as Io Sky retained her Women's World Championship in a genuine match of the year contender against Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley, with the EST wrestling most of the match with a severely broken finger and knuckle. Then Drew McIntyre blew off his mini feud with Damian Priest in a fun Sin City street fight with a very clever finish. And then the biggest babyface win of the weekend happened next as Dominic Mysterio was crowned Intercontinental Champion as he stole the win off his teammate Finn Balor to a huge pop in a wonderful fatal 4-way match. Then one of the moments of the entire weekend happened as say his name and he appears, Joe Henry answered Randy Orton's open challenge for a fun 3-minute match. Everything is just going superb. And then the rest of the night happened. Logan Paul and AJ Styles tried to put on a spot fest, but it just seemed like a soulless battle. Becky Lynch returned to be Lyra Valkyria's mystery partner as the two of them beat Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for the women's tag titles in a match that was nowhere near as good as the rematch on Raw the following night. And then, sadly, one of the worst moments of the year happened, in what should have been the best. John Cena's record-breaking 17th title win was overshadowed by a slow, plodding, boring match interrupted by the slowest interference of all time by Travis Scott, who had no business being there at all, with many people expecting The Rock instead. Before we get to number 7, just a quick reminder that you can help us Aussies out for free by clicking that subscribe button, liking the video, and letting us know in the comments what the best and worst PLEs were this year. Number 7, Backlash. Backlash was kicked off by a fantastic 4-way match for the US title, with Jacob Fatu's first defense of the belt being successful against Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, and LA Knight. Lyra Valkyria proved she can hang with the main event talent in a superb first match in her bitter feud with Becky Lynch. Dominic Mysterio and Penta then had a few mishaps in Dom's first defense of his Intercontinental Championship, but it was the next 2 matches that stopped this from being any higher on the list. Pat McAfee got back in the ring to take on the bully Gunther, who had had crashed out after losing his World Heavyweight Championship. And while this was a decent match, McAfee looking okay in the ring, he probably got a little too much offense. And then a shenanigan-filled main event occurred between John Cena and Randy Orton in their 155th match against each other, as R-Truth stopped John Cena from being punted into oblivion by the Viper. Number 6, Clash in Paris. A very, very vocal Parisian crowd were treated to a perfectly decent show, kicked off by the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns beating the Tribal Thief Bronson Reed, before the two Bronnies absolutely decimated Roman Reigns. The Wyatt Six then retained the WWE Tag Team titles against the Street Profits, where the story of the match seemed to be that the Streety P's couldn't work together anymore, even though their teamwork was fantastic throughout. Becky Lynch tried to carry Nikki Bella to a decent match next, but unfortunately the length of match exposed the Fearless One's ring rust. Rusev and Sheamus then beat the crap out of each other in various pub-related paraphernalia in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match, which was loads of fun. John Cena, with his newly found face character, started his tributes to former opponents and greats of the industry with a fun match against Logan Paul of all people. And finally, Seth Rollins needed the assistance of his wife Becky Lynch, who appeared in a hoodie, because of course she did, to whack CM Punk in the bollocks, helping the Visionary to retain his World Heavyweight Championship. The crowd probably elevated this one above its actual level, but it was still a good show overall. Number 5, Money in the Bank. You could have put either of the last two PLEs in either spot, but given the Money in the Bank stips, we put this one slightly higher. Naomi was the predictable winner of the women's briefcase, but this was a decent showcase of some of the best women in the roster with a few new faces. Julia, Roxanne Perez and Stephanie Vaquer getting plenty of shine as well. Dominic Mysterio then beat Octagon Jr. in like 5 minutes for some reason. Becky Lynch outthought her former protege Lyra Valkyria in what was the best of the 3 matches between the two of them to win the Intercontinental Championship. The men's Money in the Bank match was a superb showing with plenty of the usual insane spots, and it also featured Jacob Fatu finally turning on his boss Solo Sikoa in a way I almost predicted perfectly. Seth Rollins would go on to win the briefcase thanks to the rest of the Vision, and then Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso had a glorified house show victory of the ridiculous pairing of John Cena and Logan Paul in a match that not many people like. Number 4, SummerSlam Sunday. Proving that WWE seems to care more about their Sunday shows than their Saturday shows, SummerSlam Sunday was streets ahead of the previous day. Naomi retained her newly won Women's World Championship in a match that didn't quite hit the heights of the Women's Triple Threat at WrestleMania, but was still a great match. And then the 6-pack TLC match was sheer pandemonium, with Candice LeRae stealing the show with her ridiculous bump through a ladder before the Wyatts needed Uncle Howdy to retain their titles. And Becky Lynch spent 25 minutes destroying her fellow Irish woman Lyra Valkyria, who just wouldn't give up until getting accidentally punched by Bayley. Unfortunately, Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu put on a stinker inside the steel cage as the MFTs bumbled their way to helping their leader. Dominic Mysterio lied, cheated and stole his way to a cheeky Intercontinental retention against AJ Styles, and then Cody Rhodes defeated John Cena for the undisputed WWE title in a match that showed just how the Cena farewell tour should have been booked all along. Sadly, a return at the end of that match ruined the whole vibe of the show. Number 3, Crown Jewel Perth. Did you know we were there in the building for this? If you didn't know, welcome to our channel. The big Aussie Bronson Reed astonishingly beat Roman Reigns thanks to Jey Uso stuffing up in an Australian street fight, as the audience called Bronson names that would get us kicked off YouTube. Stephanie Vaquer won the Crown Jewel Championship against Tiffany Stratton and pulled off that beautiful corkscrew moonsault. And then John Cena and AJ Styles put on a match for the ages, almost literally, as they played the hits of all their favourite and most influential opponents, including the incredibly touching moment of John Cena hitting the Sister Abigail and then looking up to see the fireflies in the crowd. Io Sky and Rhea Ripley then defeated the Kabuki Warriors in a really tough spot with the crowd exhausted. They managed to rev up the noise enough to see them through. And then Seth Rollins dove the full length of the ring and destroyed his shoulder on his way to beating Cody Rhodes for the Men's Crown Jewel Championship in a fantastic main event. This isn't just us being biased, this was a generally very enjoyable show. Number 2, Elimination Chamber. Now, we fully understand if people will have this in first place, but we will get to those reasons soon. The Women's Chamber match started us out with a massive bang, with Jade Cargill storming her way back into the company and destroying Naomi to the sheer terror of Bianca Belair and delight of Liv Morgan. But it would be Bianca Belair who would use that rage to go on to beat Liv at the end, with Roxanne Perez proving she belonged at this level. Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus defeated Candice LeRae and Nia Jax in a fun match that was simply to give Trish a hometown pop and Tiffany the rub. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn then took each other to hell for almost half an hour in their unsanctioned match, which would end up being KO's last match until now. And then John Cena took advantage of Seth Rollins stomping CM Punk after his elimination to make Punk pass out to the STF and win the men's chamber match. And this would lead to one of the most iconic moments of the year, with Cody Rhodes telling The Rock to go yourself, and then John Cena turning heel on Cody and siding with The Rock. We marked this down a spot because the heel turn was disastrous after this moment, and The Rock was never seen again. Which leads us to number 1, Evolution. The second ever all-women's premium live event wasn't just important, it was a spectacular show. Even if the matches didn't quite hit their expectations, the show just worked, and the pacing and atmosphere were superb. Becky Lynch, Lyra Valkyria, and Bayley let everyone know just how good they are in the ring with a rip-roaring opener, with Becky Lynch pulling out a fantastic roll-up to finish the match. Jacy Jayne and Jordynne Grace showed why both of them should be on the main roster, as Jacy retained her NXT Women's Championship with a little thanks to Blake Monroe turning on her supposed friend Jordynne Grace. Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez retained their tag team titles in a fantastic 4-way match, with Sol Ruca and Zarya getting plenty of shine coming up from NXT. Trish Stratus then put on one of her best matches in recent memory, despite being 49 at the time, as she lost in a really good match with Tiffany Stratton. Jade Cargill and Naomi blew off their feud, with Jade beating Naomi in a no-holds-barred match, though the finish was a little clunky and cooperative. Stephanie Vaquer then crowned herself the number 1 contender for the Women's World title as she won the Evolution Battle Royal, with Lash Legend looking like a monster. But it was the main event that really cements Evolution's place at number 1. Io Sky and Rhea Ripley show why the two of them should just have matches forever, as Rhea tried to throw Io around everywhere, while Io had a counter for almost everything. But while both were down after a ridiculously good near fall, Naomi's music hits for her to catch in her briefcase, throw Rhea out of the ring, and pin Io Sky to win the Women's World Championship. This was an incredible moment to end the show, and despite being the biggest heel on the women's roster, Naomi's win was very popular with the crowd. So let us know your thoughts on the rankings of the premium live events for 2025. Did we get any wrong? And how about you help us Aussies out by subscribing to the channel and liking the video before continuing on your ACW journey by checking out our video of the big returns due in 2026 and a couple even sooner.